to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm MK.
And I'm Courtney.
I'm Courtney. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I uh I feel like when we started this recording session, I was like, I don't know what to talk about. And then I was like, wow, a lot has happened in the 2 weeks that I haven't seen you.
Correct.
Um, so I'm okay. So another life update. What's new? Um, I started a new job this week. Don't worry, I'm also doing the other two I was also doing. I am
Correct.
just also doing another one. So I'm kind of excited though. I'm going to be doing billing, which is, I'm sure, not thrilling. It's
No,
not
but
thrilling at all, but it's easy and it's consistent and it's at Rachel's office. So
mhm.
I'll be pretty consistent. I can do like a pretty flexible schedule, which is nice. So I'll be able to study while I'm working up there and I can like listen to books and stuff again. And honestly, those are some of my happiest days at TRO, bless you,
Thank
when
you.
I was just data data entry for
Yeah.
royalties and I just listened to books all day and didn't talk to anyone or do anything. So
Yeah.
can't say I'm upset about going back to doing that again. Which will be nice. So I'll also be doing that, and then I'm editing for like a UK office with like technical manuals and stuff. Both of those jobs technically start tomorrow. So I'm starting them on the exact same day, which is gonna be super fun.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get up at like 6 and do editing for a couple hours before I go in. Um, can't wait. That sounds super exciting. And then still data annotation stuff as always. But yeah, so I've just got always got a lot of new changes. So now that I've
Yeah.
kind of gotten my job front a little more stable, I'm also looking for apartments, which I was hoping to do last month, but now I'm doing this month. So
Kevin.
that's okay. But I definitely want to get like something before like the Christmas holidays hit,
Yeah.
just so because that's gonna be a crazy time. So I've been looking a lot, and there's a couple of places around here that are reasonably affordable, that are still nearby everyone. So I'm hopefully gonna go check out some of those this week. Maybe I'll have a place that is my place and will be different from the last time you've seen us record. So,
Maybe.
you
Maybe.
know,
I mean,
but that's
eventually,
me.
eventually I'll stop recording here and get my furniture moved into my house.
Right, right. Eventually we'll all be in different places again, constantly. But yeah, so I just have a lot of life updates, a lot of normal changes in my life. They're not normal, but normal for me.
Yeah.
Um, so that's how I am. So I'm starting to feel a little settled again, which is
No.
nice. So how are you?
I'm okay. So the other day, my sister said to me, Gabby said, I keep seeing all these videos online where people are like, "Oh, how could you ever get bored of me and all my different personalities?" Like a guy never has to worry about being like settled because I'm crazy. And my sister was like, not only is that true about you, you also like reinvent yourself as an entirely new human every 6 months. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. She was like, remember how 6 months ago the Olympics were your only personality trait? She was like, well, since the last time I've spoken to you guys, I have finished the first four books in the ACOTAR series. Um, I have also finished listening to the graphic audio version of the first book and a half.
Oh,
And I have spent an embarrassingly large amount of money on merch.
can confirm.
Yeah, I have bought stickers, I bought sweaters, I bought paintings. I it's a problem. I bought jewelry. I bought candles that smell like the way the boys are described as smelling in the books. And then made my dad and Dan sniff them. But the pride and joy of my collection of things that I have bought is this beautiful, beautiful tumbler.
It is beautiful.
Is
And even without the
beautiful.
obsession, I would probably own that still.
Right. And like all the words on it are like quotes from the books, and it's just got stars and it's beautiful. Chrissy and Kate got me a new nameplate for my desk. One of the gifts that they gave me for my bridal shower it says Mrs. Johnson, and it has the Night Court insignia on it.
That is insane.
Like it is my only personality. I'm really hoping that someone will love me enough for Christmas to buy me the box set of the 6 books, or the 5 books. But also,
It's not me.
that's fine. I also don't expect a lot of people to buy me Christmas presents since everyone's also going to my wedding the same week as
Buying a
Christmas.
plane ticket? Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm like I read all the books on Kindle and listened to them on audiobook. I need to buy the books and have them in print so I can read them again in print and highlight and take notes. But then I also want to buy hardcover copies that I don't write in for my shelves. Like that's how much I love these books.
I will say, I read the first book around the time it came out, like 7 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
And I listened to it as an audiobook and I really liked it. And then I did this year buy the first book again in a physical copy to read it because I think it would be more fun to read it as a physical copy as opposed to listening to it. I mean, both are fine.
Yeah.
I have not gone back to read it again yet because everything is chaos. Oh, but if I have an office job, you best believe my purse, I'm not going to be able to carry. I'm going to have my like outline book, my laptop, and a book.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I will say, if you've only read the first book, you
I read
probably
this first half of the second book, I think.
okay. So the first book is good. And like a lot of people, the reason this book is so popular, like on Book Talk and everything, is a lot of people have said the same thing that I said. And it was like, as someone who read religiously all of the time for a very long time, and then like got into a slump where just like reading wasn't it. Like you guys, I'm a fucking English teacher. You guys know how I feel about books. It took me 4 years to read the 5th Game of Thrones book. And then I read 2 more books after that, but like I just have not been reading. I started reading the ACOTAR books on September 27th. I am 4 books done. It's November 3rd. And I work 3 jobs and I'm planning a wedding. Like I've never felt this way. I haven't felt this way about reading since high school. Like, and that's what most people who have read these books said, like that it reignited that need to read. But I will say the first book is really, really good. The second and third books changed my life.
That's what Nora told me. Yeah. Did you ever read the Sookie Stackhouse series?
No, you've told me to read it. It's on my list, but
I'm gonna keep telling you until you read it.
Yeah. The girls that I work with in my office are reading. One is on the 5th book of ACOTAR right now, and one is on the 7th book of Throne of Glass. And so they're like, you have to read it. You have to read it. And I was like, I'll be fine. And they're like, no, you have to read it. And then one day I was like,
it's one of like 4 books, like physical books I own right now, and I do want to go back and read it.
Yeah.
I need to reread the first one before I can keep going. But.
Yes. But yeah, so that's my only personality, is buying things that have quotes from ACOTAR on them.
Well, I
replaced Dan as the background on my phone from fan art of ACOTAR.
That's amazing. I feel like we both change our personalities and our obsessions a lot, so maybe that's why we get on so well. Because we just are constantly new people.
All the time.
All the time. I am gonna read it eventually, though.
No, my mom was like, at least when you were obsessively buying things about Stargate, you could pretend that they were for the podcast. I don't know what you're supposed to do with all of these things. I was like, love them.
Until you find your next oh my gosh, obsession, and then they end up on a shelf.
Yes,
and then you next.
But I will say, I changed my personality a lot. I'm like, oh my God, I love these things so much. And then like I do that. But I haven't connected to a character in a book the way I do about the book characters in this book since Twilight. And Twilight was not a phase for me. Twilight was years. It was years of my life.
You're still.
I still obsessed about Twilight. But like Twilight was a decade of my life. So I don't feel bad about how much money I've spent, because I also don't see this like ending, especially because the book series isn't over.
Yeah. No, I feel like this one will definitely last longer for you than a lot of things like the Olympics and whatnot.
Yeah.
Well, the
Olympics, the problem is the Olympics happens and then it is over, and it's hard to continue obsessing about it. In 2 years, when the Winter Olympics start, I can't promise that I won't go back to that.
I feel like you probably will.
Yeah. So since I have just admitted quite how unstable mentally I am, do you want to like send me some guidance?
Yeah, I'm trying to pick the best one. Um, okay, this one's good.
Okay.
Um, I found that ultimately, if you truly pour your heart into what you believe in, even if it makes you vulnerable, amazing things can and will happen. Emma Watson,
That hurt.
the best.
No. Um, today we're going to talk about Stargate SG-1, Season 7, Episode 1, Fallen.
I am flabbergasted that we're on season 7.
I- I- We've been doing Stargate for longer than Dan and I have been together.
I know. That's true.
Yeah. This episode was rated 8.2 stars, and it came out on June 13th, 2003. The number one book was The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown.
Oh, did you ever read that book?
It's on my TBR list. I literally bought
Okay.
it in Thailand, ran out of like time while I was still in Thailand. The copy that I bought in Thailand was so broken that my mom was like, throw it out and I will buy you a new copy when you come home. Like, stop. Because I was struggling to get rid of things when I was leaving Thailand. She never bought me a new copy. I don't have it. I'll
You
get there
should read Angels
eventually.
and Demons first. I think that's the first Dan Brown one if you haven't read it.
Is it? I thought it was Da Vinci Code, then Angels and Demons.
I think Angels and Demons is first because I read it first.
Okay.
Let's see. But it was that was a book that really like sent me.
Yeah. I just can't tell my
Yeah,
grandma.
it's Angels and Demons, the Da Vinci Code, and then there's more.
My,
I've not read the more. I've only read the first two.
my grandma really doesn't like books that make the Catholic Church seem shady.
Well,
Um,
buckle up, buttercup.
right. The number one song was 21 Questions by 50 Cent and Nate Dogg.
Feel like I should remember that song.
I don't remember it.
Hmm.
But also like all of 2003, the number one songs were 50 Cent songs. So like I don't how am I supposed to know
Sure,
which one?
yeah.
And the number one movie, this sent me a little bit because I could not believe that it's been out this long. The number one movie was Finding Nemo.
Yeah, it was 2003. We're in 2003.
Uh,
Yeah, that's Nemo.
yeah. I don't remember that. I didn't remember that Nemo came out when I was in middle school. Like I thought
Hmm.
I was already in high school when Nemo came out, but apparently not.
I feel like Nemo was one of the first big ones I remember, like coming out when I was a child.
Wow.
Because everything before that was like I was kind of young,
Yeah.
but Nemo I remember being like a big one.
Um, all the news for on that day was about the Middle East and wars, and so I didn't really care to talk about it. Not that I don't care, but like I didn't care to talk about
Right,
it.
right.
But there was one other thing, and that was that on that day, Roger Clemens got his 4,000th strikeout and his 300th win.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Roger Clemens has the third most strikeouts in the MLB history. So,
I know his name, so that means he must have done something because I don't know anything about baseball.
baseball, let me tell you, the World Series was the last 2 weeks. Um, the Guardians were not in the World Series, which was devastating for me.
Right.
But
It was who was it? It was Yankees and somebody.
the Yankees,
Rangers?
no, the LA Dodgers. Now,
Dodgers. I knew it was
the
somebody.
thing about the LA Dodgers is that the LA Dodgers have this kid on their team named Shonai Otani. And he is amazing. Like,
Yeah.
so good. And this was his first postseason, like that he was in. And I was so pumped that they won so that he could get a World Series like win. Like, because he is so good. He has like beat records that I didn't even know were possible. Like, he's
Well,
amazing.
and they didn't play but like 3 or 4 of the games, right? Like they didn't even make it
Oh,
very
yeah.
far into the
No,
series.
Yeah,
because they just
they
dominated.
won 3 in a row. Then the game 4, the Yankees held on. And then game
Mm,
5 was a merciful, like, just give up.
yeah,
One of my students is really into baseball and he is not speaking to me right now because of it. Because he's a Yankees fan and he was like, "Do you think the Yankees
sure.
are gonna like come out on top?" I said, "I sure hope not."
Do you hate the Yankees?
I hate the Yankees.
Mm.
I hate the Yankees. Um, so my dad likes the Yankees. My mom likes the Dodgers. It's been a very fun 2 weeks.
Oh, so contentious household, I see.
Yeah, but my mom knew that I wanted the Dodgers to win, so it was great. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. This episode was directed by Martin Wood, written by Robert C. Cooper, and edited by Rick Martin. So nothing new.
Hmm.
Our guest star is George Touliatos, um, who played the like head of the tribe of the people there on that land because no one else who had a bigger role in the episode was a new person. Um, he's known for Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, Heavy Metal, Double Jeopardy, and This Means War. He is an actor of Greek descent. He played the Greek grandpa in Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
Mm.
And he was born in Memphis in 1929. And in 1958, he opened the Front Street Theater in Memphis, which was a big deal, but it didn't really last very long. He was the co-founder and he was the president for about 10 years. And then after he left, it only lasted for another like year or two after he left. Um, but it was a performing venue in the 50s and 60s. So like it was a good time. He passed away in 2017 at the age of 87 when he was living in Washington State. And he does not have a Wikipedia. Everything that I just told you is all that is available on his IMDb. Like, he is too old to have social media or anything. I
Right.
found his obituary and it literally just says died. Like, like, so unfortunately, that is all I have of him. I have nothing.
Bless his heart.
Yeah. Um, we start the episode with some people on a planet. We don't know any of these people. They're just walking and talking through this planet. When a bright light flashes and they find Daniel naked on the ground with no idea who he is.
This is all I thought about last week while you were like, what are your thoughts about Daniel? And I was like, this. He never left. He's never leaving. He's just there all the time. But obviously I couldn't say that because we hadn't watched this episode yet.
Yeah.
But that's all I thought about during the wrap up.
Yeah, I didn't want to talk about it during the wrap up because technically we hadn't started season 7 yet, but Daniel's
Mhm.
officially like back.
Back.
Daniel was
Yeah.
in the credits.
Yeah.
So there's that.
What a time.
What a time. We went through all of that grief just for it to literally not even actually have been gone.
Yeah. Because, like, this may be saved for predictions, but is he coming back? You don't have to answer. Is he
Yeah.
coming back to SG to be on the team now without his memory? Is that the whole situation?
Well,
Or is he going to, like, go back once he figures out that he's ascended? Or is he unascended? Like, I have so many questions.
well, I don't want to get into that because this is the first
Right.
part of a two-parter.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I don't want to get into a lot of the details of that. But I mean, the name of the episode is Fallen.
Right. Right. So it feels like, I mean, that's my assumption is that he has fallen back to Earth. He is now going to rejoin SG. So now we have a team of 5, but we can't get rid of Jonas because we've spent a whole season trying to get him built in. So now we just have this extra person and it's nonsense. Nonsense for nonsense sake.
So after the credits, we see
These are all the things I couldn't say an hour ago. And so now I'm just saying them.
Yes. I like that nonsense for nonsense sake. So after the credits, we see Jonas, and he's just doing some work. And then all of a sudden, we get It's a really weird scene, I will say. The scene of like him working in silence and then just like randomly having an idea and going to a book and picking it out and solving a problem. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but so he figures something out and he starts running through the base. And then he like is knocking people over, forgetting everybody's name. He gets on an elevator. And a fun fact, the guy he starts shaking in the elevator is the director. That's Martin Wood.
Oh, that's funny. That's fun. I
Yeah.
like that.
And so he starts shaking Martin Wood and he's like, everything's different when you use Asgard translations for ancient dialects. And we're like, what the fuck is he talking about?
It sounds like a
Um,
crackhead.
yes. And he's like, we're not looking for a lost city. What? So he finds Sam in Hammond's office, and Sam is reporting to Hammond that Anubis is becoming a much bigger problem than anyone anticipated. And
Sure.
he's wiping out all of this other system lords. And Jonas interrupts and starts explaining that the Lost City actually isn't a lost city, it's a city of the lost. And he found this city where a plague began, and it was like not completed before the plague went in. So it's probably one of the addresses that Jack put in the computers when he had the ancient repository in his brain. And he's like, so have you gone through all of the addresses? And Sam's like, not at all. Like, we're like maybe a quarter of the way through. And he's like, yeah, but I'm guessing the way that Jack put them in, they were in an order. If this city was not finished, wouldn't you think it would be the last city on the list? So they decide to go to the planet where the last city is. And turns out it's the planet that Daniel landed on.
Hmm. Hmm.
And everything is shocking to them because they expected the city to be abandoned because, of a plague. But there's people there.
What a coincidence.
The people are also not from that planet, though. It turns out that they are travelers who also came through the Stargate and found this place and used it as a place to live when they escaped wherever they were escaping.
Hmm.
So they're checking out the ruins and trying to figure everything out when Daniel comes back over to them, and the airmen are very like confused to see Daniel there. Then we have a weird scene where Jack and the leader of these people are just like exchanging proverbs.
Yeah.
Um, to decide if they can trust each other. And then the airmen bring Daniel to them, and he has no clue who he is. And we find out he's been there for 2 months and has yet to uncover any information about who he is or who SG-1 is. And I think that's the only part of this that is unbelievable to me is that he sat there for 2 months without being able to come up with anything. And then within like 2 days of everyone being there, he's like starting to have memories again.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Like, that is such an unrealistic thing because those 2 months he's been like theoretically trying to figure out. And sure, he didn't have like a picture
Anything
of
to spark
Shara,
his memory.
but like, still, like, if it's gonna come back, pieces are gonna start coming back, even if you
Right.
don't know what they are, you don't know why they're there, or like you start
Exactly.
seeing something if you're gonna start seeing something. I feel like,
Yeah. Um, so Jack goes to talk to Daniel and he tries to explain who he is and he tells him about the Ascension and Anubis and like none of it is ringing any bells for Daniel. He's like, I really just genuinely don't know what you're talking about. Um,
yeah,
so Jack goes to talk to Sam and Sam tells him that it's possible that if Daniel was like chose to come back to being human because we found out that people can choose to no longer be ancient. We've found that out in the past that even if he chose to go back to being human, his memory loss may not have been voluntary because he broke so many rules trying to help them with Anubis. So like
yeah.
there might genuinely just be nothing left there. Um so Sam's like, okay, like let me go talk to him. So she goes to visit Daniel and talk to him, and it turns out that we find out that he tells her he's not even really sure he wants to know who he is, because what if he finds out that he didn't like himself?
Right. Like, what if there's a reason he lost his memory, not
Yeah.
just happenstance?
So Sam like tells him how amazing he is and how wonderful he is, and she's like going on and on about it. And Daniel's like, did something happen between us? And she was like, No, not like
Like
that.
0%.
We're just really, really good friends. Like, that's not what this is at all. So they convinced Daniel to come back to the SGC and at least like attempt to figure it out. So they take him back, and he tells Hammond that he doesn't have any memories. And Janet does a medical scan and determines that Daniel is in perfect health, except for, fun fact, he still needs his glasses. Um, which was funny when he puts them back on and was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Um, so Jack takes Daniel to his old room, which they apparently have kept completely together and intact this entire time, which is so upsetting.
Because why not? Yeah.
And he's like, I thought that you thought I was dead. And he's like, yeah, uh, I left your stuff here. Like, Jack can't tell you he actually cares about you. That's
That's
not
not
how
Jack.
that, yeah. And he finds the picture of Share and is like attempting to remember who he is. Like, he was like, I know this person. And Jack's like, really? And he's like, well, no, I just assume if I have a picture of her on my nightstand that I know her. Like, I don't know. So he falls asleep and wakes up in the middle of the night and goes to Teal'c. Um, and Teal'c is attempting to do Kalmarine, but fun fact, he can't anymore. Um,
Yeah.
um, which is interesting, and I wish they would go more into it about the fact that like Teal'c is gonna have to actually like sleep and eat like a human now that he doesn't have a symbiote to like
Yeah.
do
It
that
makes me
for
have a lot of
him.
questions.
Yeah.
Because, like, they've been around for so many years. Like, do they die now? Like, what's going to keep them?
The Tritonin is keeping them.
But, like, it's just acting as the symbiote,
It's fixing,
essentially.
yeah, it's fixing their immune system because the basically they needed the symbiote still because they needed their immune system. The Tritonin like gives them a perfect immune system, so they don't need the symbiote anymore. But also,
But they have to keep applying it, right?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. It's never really clear how often these regular doses are, or if they're like daily or weekly or what. Like we don't really quite have that under wraps, but yes, they do need to keep injecting themselves. Um, so Daniel has remembered Shari's name. He had a dream about her, and he knows that he loves her. And so he's asking where she is, which then Teal'c has to tell him that she's dead. And then my sister was mad. She was like, we're still talking about Shari
Bro.
in season 7. I was like, yes,
Yeah.
yes, we are. Um, okay. Um, So while talking to Teal'c, Daniel is like struggling to figure out why some pieces are coming to him and others aren't, and like what he's supposed to know or why he even like doesn't remember anything. And um Teal'c thinks that it's possible that Oma Dasala like basically left the possibility for Daniel's memories to come back in there, even though she wasn't supposed to, and like broke the rules of the other ancients because she wanted Daniel to be able to figure it out.
Mhm.
Um, the next morning, they're in the briefing room, and Jonas is going over some things about what they know about Anubis' stuff or the city. And Daniel shows up, and they're like, "You can't really be here. It's classified." And he's like, "Yeah, but like, did I ever technically stop being part of the team?" And he's like, I don't know why. I just feel like I need to be here." They're like, okay. So Jonas continues talking, and Daniel's like, okay, well, here's the problem. The translation is wrong. And Jonas gets real defensive. He's like, I used your notes. And Daniel's like, okay, well, I was way off. Which to be fair, these notes of Daniel's are from like season 1, season 2, Daniel.
Right.
So of course they're not correct. He's like, well, I was like way off. He's like, you thought that it was the city of the lost, but it's not. It is the lost city. Like that's real. And he's like, and they're like, okay, so like, where is it? He was like, yeah, no, literally, that's all I know. I don't, I
He was
can
like,
read.
did I not just say all I know?
He's like, I can read it. I can tell you what it says. It doesn't make sense to me. Like nothing. So then we get a little montage of Jonas and Daniel working on one piece of a plan, and Sam and the Chokra working on another piece of the plan, and Teal'c working on a different piece of the plan. And Jack is working with the people on Visuban, which is the planet that they were at, and they all work together to understand what to do. And then they come up with what may or may not be the most convoluted plan that they have ever come up with. So, using the information that Daniel and Jonas have found in the translation, they're going to put a fake tablet on Visuban to lure Anubis to this planet. Then they're going to use the information that the Tok'ra gave them to fix the Nequadria generator to be able to jump into subspace. Then they're going to have Daniel and Jonas sneak onto Anubis's mothership to find the ancient text codes to let them know where the power core is, so that Sam and Jack can then slip out of subspace and attack the power core, leaving the ship's defenses down, but not killing the ship, which comes where the next part of the crazy ass plan is, that Lord Yu will assemble the other Goa'uld to destroy Anubis. Jack says that this is the wackiest thing they've ever come up with. And Sam brings up a couple of their other shining moments of the past. And it's like, is it wackier than this? He's like, yes, it is. So we see Yu and his fleet getting ready. Daniel, then they're all, the rest of the people are getting ready to go to Visuban to get everything ready. And Daniel remembers Charlie and the story of how Jack even started working for the Stargate program. And Jack says, like, are you sure you remember everything? And he's like, I don't, but I remember enough. So, like, at this point, Daniel doesn't have all his memories, but like his sense of being is starting to come back.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, Hammond and Harriman are off world to run the operation on Visuban, which is just the funniest thing.
Wild.
To see them both.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Anubis' ship is on its way into the system. The X-302 takes off, and then Anubis's Jaffa land on the planet. Jonas and Daniel sneak onto the ship. Sam and Jack start getting attacked by gliders. And while all of this craziness is going on, Yu pulls out at the last minute and orders his fleet across the galaxy, getting rid of one of the more critical elements of the plan. This is about where I paused the episode and said, there are only 5 minutes in this episode. I was pretty confident that this was a two-parter, but now I'm incredibly confident because there's a 0% chance this is getting wrapped up in 5 minutes. Our good old friend Herak, our least favorite first prime, tells Anubis that is a human base camp on the planet that has somehow masked their energy signatures. So, and while this is happening, Daniel gets into the computer core, sends it to Sam so they know where it is. Anubis attacks the planet since what he's looking for is not there. And Jonas luckily warns base camp to evacuate. Sam jumps into the hyperdrive, breaches the ship, destroys the core, and is trying to work on getting Daniel out of the ship. But Daniel is now alone on the ship because Anubis has captured Jonas. And he is threatening Jonas. And Jonas, this is why I love Jonas, because he just does not give a single fuck who Anubis is. Anubis is like,
Because you're dealing with near.
Yeah, right. He's like, this is not
So he's just like, look, it's another person who's like captured me.
Yeah. Well, Anubis is like, I don't think this is the time to gloat. And he's like, why? We destroyed your weapon. I think it's a pretty as good time as any to gloat. Like, but then Anubis brings out our old friend, the memory spike cube, and we get it to be continued. And it was funny. Brie goes, you know when TV shows like leave you on a hanging image of like an object that you're supposed to know what it is? I was like, yes, we do know what that is. Anubis has used it before. She goes, cool. That makes sense. I'm glad because I did it and I thought that was a really weird cliffhanger.
I didn't remember what it was, but I don't remember what anything is. So
Yeah.
I did recognize that it was not like a new thing. I
Yeah.
just didn't remember much past that.
It is the memory thing that they stuck in Thor's head and ruined his life. So,
Mhm.
wow.
Yeah, that tracks. So, does this mean, oh my God, I'm gonna cancel this shot myself. Does this mean that he's now going to do this to Jonas? And now Jonas and Daniel Jackson are not going to have their memories. And so they're just going to be half people. And that's why it's okay that everyone is now in this team because we just have two half people. And then, like, the other three members of the team.
No. I'm not even going to be like, can't confirm or deny that. No, that would be the worst plot ever.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I was like, I would cancel it.
Yeah,
I would be
no.
so done.
That is not what's going to happen.
Good.
Okay.
Glad to hear that.
Do you have any other questions?
I don't know. Um, uh,
Um,
I don't know. I feel like I had my Daniel spiel at the beginning, so that was my biggest takeaway from this episode.
yeah.
Um, I don't know. Like, I guess one of my questions that you can't answer is like, aside from being fallen,
Yeah.
um, how do we get rid of the ancients? Because like the gold, like it's tough, but we can do it. And like the replicators, it's tough, but we can do it. But like the ancients seem tough and that we can't do it.
See,
Um,
the ancients though, I think the problem is that the ancients aren't really villains.
well, yeah, except Anubis, but he's like his own thing, but he's still like got the
Yeah.
powers of the ancients and stuff. So like, is he destroyable? Is a question, I guess. I feel like he has to be.
I guess that's what we're gonna find out.
Yeah.
Yeah. My
No.
trivia is so they never actually confirmed that the Asgard gave them the translation of what was found in the Library of the Four Races on Tantalus. But they do talk about using an Asgard translation, and the Asgard are the race that they have the most connection with. So it is assumed that like Thor gave them that translation.
The translation like that they've been using of Daniel's.
The one that Jonas found of Daniel's old book that they
Got
didn't
it.
know what it
Okay.
was. Yeah. Um, the other thing is that this is was there was a lot of interviews with a lot of people that all basically said the same thing, and that was that with Daniel coming back, the memory thing's kind of weird, right? And obviously we don't know the conclusion of the story because it's a two-part story, but there was never, will never be any intention for Daniel to come back and for things to just go back to normal. That like
Right.
is not how this is going
That's
to play
good.
because it wouldn't it would be a wasted year of character development for multiple characters if he were to just show up and make everything go back to the way it was.
Yeah. It wouldn't be fair to the viewers. Like we've
Mhm.
grown so much through this storyline and through these characters
Yes.
that if we just like reverted back, it's like um it just like I mean, like you said, wasted development, but like it just wouldn't be fair because it's like
But
it would be a lazy plot line, I guess, to just
it
like
would,
start over.
but also a lot of the things that made Daniel a good candidate for joining the Ancients, um, he has now come to resent because of the
Right.
Ancients. And like, if you look at how Daniel behaved in the season 6 finale, a lot of the things that we loved about Daniel may not be true anymore. So that's just something to think about, and that his evolution is a very, he's going to be, even though he's back, it's not going to be the same Daniel Jackson.
Well, and I think this would be the way I would write it if I was the writers. I don't know how it comes out,
Yeah,
obviously,
obviously.
but after seeing this development, you have your Daniel Jackson character, and one of
Yeah.
the things about him becoming an ancient was that he was so steadfast in his views and beliefs, and we have to be here, like we have to protect people, we have to think about the emotions, we have to think about the humanity, we have to think about the linguistics, and being put in the ancient realm shows that differently. You see that differently than you do as just a person on earth.
Mhm.
And so he's able to see that there's a lot more gray areas than he had previously
Right.
discussed, I guess. And so my take, if we're going to bring him back to SG, I would I would think his memories would eventually come back, or at least the ancient memories with some other stuff scattered in, because I think that's gonna be how they would have to develop his character moving forward. Is like you say, change, and it's like he's changed because he realizes there's so many gray areas. He realizes so
Yeah.
many of the things that he learned, like being an educator, being like through like logical A+B=C. That's what it is, and that's
Yeah.
not how it is. And so
Right.
I feel like we have to start seeing that side of him, which
Mhm.
I feel like
Mhm.
we've gotten some with Jonas, which is why Jonas was a little bit more developed as that character already, I feel like.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how that's gonna play out, but I do
Right.
feel like that would be the direction I would want to take Daniel if I was writing him, would be to kind of show how the world's different than he previously
Right.
thought.
Fair enough. I like it. My last piece of trivia is just a funny one. Obviously, uh, Daniel keeps calling Jack Jim.
Yeah.
And that is actually a direct reference to Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, when Spock gets his memories back and continues to call Captain Kirk Jim.
Even though he has memories, so he knows his name now.
Yeah. Well, but
Okay.
no, Kirk's name is James, but like Spock gets like weirdly familiar and starts calling him Jim, even though
Mm,
no one else does.
I see.
And it is so that's where that came from. Um,
That makes sense.
I I don't know, I mean, we've talked a little bit about a lot of some predictions and questions. Obviously it's very interesting with our good friend coming back. Um, but it's really hard to do too many predictions because we're right in the middle of a
Right.
two-part episode.
And
Um,
coming off of a potentially series closeout, like finale, not
right,
just season finale, like they're gonna have to redo,
right. And like
anything. So
at the end of season or at the end of episode 2, once this particular story arc is done, you can kind of see what loose ties there are or what hints to the future they give you. But in the middle of a
yeah,
two-part episode with like a cliffhanger, it's really hard to kind of like figure out what choice they're gonna make, except for that, like, is someone gonna die? I don't know. Everyone's in danger.
right.
Like that's really
Yeah.
like so. Um, if you guys have any thoughts, theories, predictions, questions about Daniel and this the roller coaster ride we're on with him being alive and dead, um, you can email us at Death and Aliens. Oh my God, no, because we have to punch people in the face. I forgot that that existed.
I
It's
forgot
been
that existed too. We've been so many
it's been
not regular
so long
episodes.
since we have had a regular episode
I
that
was just like, yeah, sure.
I forgot that we have to
Why
punch
not?
people in the face. Who do you want to punch?
Oh my God, now I have to think. I have totally forgotten everything. I mean, I guess Anubis, like,
That's fair.
it's kind of a cop out answer, but that is who I want to punch.
I want to punch Lord Yu
Yeah,
because that's some bullshit.
yeah.
Who is your MVP?
I really kind of want to punch a lot of people, but I guess my MVP It's gonna be Jonas this week.
Yeah.
He's trying the best, and he's the one put in the most uncomfortable situation with his replacee coming back.
I'm gonna pick Sam because she like tries really hard to like get Daniel to understand who he is as a person. And like
Yeah, that Sam would do it too.
yeah. So that is a all right. So now that we've done that, if you want to email us, you can email us at deathandaliens@gmail.com or follow us on all of the social media at Death and Aliens. You can follow me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
And you can find me at CE Cloud 13.
And we will see you on Thursday for a fun episode of
Another
Throwback
season
Thursday.
intro.
Yes. All right. Bye.
Bye.